Hey everybody, it's noon on Friday, so I'm doing a Facebook Live today. Today I'm talking about how to create a culture of storytelling at your organization. It's currently a blizzard here. Let's see if you can see without me screwing up my video. Can you see? This is where I live, literally. This is what's happening. The snow hasn't even melted and it's still snowing. Oops, but it's spring, so thought you'd appreciate that if you're not anywhere near here. And I'm wearing my Pearl Jam International Women's Day shirt, which I just got in the mail and I'm very excited about. So, okay, what are we talking about today? How to create a culture of storytelling at your organization. This is a question I get very, very frequently, no matter where I speak, no matter the size of the organization. People frequently ask, well, my executive director, my board chair, the program officers, people in my organization, they're just not on board, they're not comfortable telling stories, or they won't help me get stories. So how do you create this culture at your organization? Well, I think that people need some tough love. So I'm going to be looking at my notes during this, so don't mind me looking at my notes. But what I feel is that the entire nonprofit sector needs to shift its attention away from what we need to what our donors need. So becoming more donor-centric in our communications if we are focused on fundraising, which most of us are doing storytelling to raise more money and to cultivate relationships with donors. So how I feel about this is that I just feel like it's your job if you're a development or marketing director, and I've been there, and you know that if you know me. I have been a one-person development marketing director, and I know that it's challenging, and I understand the challenges that you're facing. I think that it's your job to educate your organization and the people in your organization. Don't come at it in that way, preachy, and I'm educating you and you don't know anything. Come at it from well, this has been proven to work for several organizations. I always feel that the more planning you can do, the better. If you go to your executive director and just say, I want to collect stories and I want to share them on Instagram, but you don't have a plan and you don't have any examples, it's going to be a lot harder for them to buy in and to help you in the work that you want to do. So go to your board, go to your executive director with a plan, with examples, show how many people are using social media, show some of the statistics, and I'm happy to send you some statistics on how storytelling affects donations. I'm sure you have great examples that you've seen in your news feed, on YouTube, on television, even in the news. I know that the local NPR affiliate here does such a fantastic job profiling nonprofits and storytelling, or StoryCorps. So come prepared with examples, and then come with a little bit of a plan. These are the three things that I want to do. This is why. This is how much it's going to cost. It might not cost anything. And this is the return on investment that I think it will have. First of all, doing that with any new initiative, I think would be very impressive, because it's more, you're not coming at it from a purely emotional, well, everybody's doing storytelling, we gotta tell stories. You're not stressed out, you're not in panic mode. You're coming at it from a very pragmatic point of view, and it's going to be very hard to argue if you have a little bit of a plan and you've mapped it all out and you say, well, this is what I want to do. This is a percentage of my time I want to spend on it. This is how we're going to incorporate it into our overall marketing and strategic communications and fundraising plan. This is how it's going to contribute and elevate the work that we're doing, those kinds of things. So also, with your little plan, come prepared with a list of answers to frequently asked questions. Okay, so I'm going to tell you some of the frequent challenges that people face, and I wrote some notes about this. So the reason why people are skeptical, especially around social media, is that they fear the unknown. So even in 2017, a lot of organizations are not really on board with the digital marketing and fundraising revolution. On the other hand, a lot of organizations work with clients that their confidentiality and their information need to be protected, and they're thinking client first. That is completely respectable. In another video, I will talk about how to deal with confidentiality and how to get stories when you're dealing with confidentiality. But it's important for you to step back and understand that while you are super excited about these tools and using them, and you understand the potential and you understand the potential return on investment, some people might be threatened by social media especially, or threatened by telling stories online. They might not understand it. They don't necessarily see the value. So once again, goes back to your education. But people, they fear the unknown and they expect the worst. In every social media seminar that I do, there's always this fear of, oh, we're going to get negative comments, we're going to get trolls, we're going to get negative reviews. What do we do in that situation? And we'll talk about that actually in a future video. I'll talk about creating social media policies. I'll talk about it a little bit today. But understanding that, respecting it, and listening, and not looking at them like they're crazy or they're Luddites or they have no idea what they're talking about, that will help you. Just coming back at them with facts, coming back at them with a plan. That's really how you combat skepticism. Also, the other challenge, we're all too busy. We're too busy, we're putting out fires, we're doing whatever we're doing, we're saving lives, we're saving animals, we're saving the environment, we're saving people, we're feeding people. We just don't have time to collect these stories. We don't have time to deal with it. We're just treading water. I know what that, I understand that feeling, and that's where the planning comes in. But also respecting that, listening to it, but you have to be thinking ahead, and that's a bigger problem in the sector than I can really tackle in just one video, is the lack of thinking ahead. Not every organization, clearly, but some of the smaller organizations, they're really focused on the day-to-day, the next gift, the next appeal, the next event, and they're not thinking about the follow-up, the cultivation, the donor retention, showing the impact, that kind of thing. So explaining that you want to kind of get off this hamster wheel and you think that storytelling could really be used for donor retention and cultivation and keeping these donors rather than trying to get new donors all the time. That's very important also. Let us do our work in peace. This is something I've heard from actual organizations. They didn't want to share stories via email, and they didn't want to encourage people to contact them on social media. They didn't want to publish their phone number because they just didn't want anyone in the general public to call them. That's crazy. That's crazy. You do have to understand that if you are sharing stories and using social media and using digital storytelling, it is opening a can of worms that you are responsible for, answering questions and making sure there are no trolls and spam and that kind of thing. But it's also a fantastic opportunity to interact in real time with your donors, with your supporters. So I understand all those challenges, and I do feel that there are adequate responses to those challenges. So how do you really create this culture at your organization? First, you have to start with the higher ups. Maybe you are the higher up. Go to them, explain what you're doing, and then incorporate storytelling into every meeting, every staff meeting, every volunteer orientation. Even if you have like a night where you're just stuffing envelopes, doing the direct mail appeal, you're stuffing bags for the event, you're organizing a board retreat, you're on the bus taking the kids to camp, whatever you're doing, incorporate some storytelling in there. And then you'll start to find that you'll be drawing it out of people, and it will just become second nature eventually. Also eliminating silos. This is a huge one. So when I started as the development and marketing director at the domestic violence shelter where I worked in Virginia, I was a younger girl. I'm from the North. I'm from Boston. I'd never lived in Virginia before. I'm white, and the women that were working there were 99% African American, and they'd all from Virginia, and they'd worked there for years. So they saw me kind of as an outsider, which was natural. And I kind of came in, guns blazing, and I was like, I want to collect stories. I want us to get on Facebook. I want us to have a blog. I want us to do all of these things. And they were sort of like, whoa, hold your horses. You've got to understand the women that we're working with, the families we're working with, and you have to understand us and our values first. So for me, I kind of had my head down for a little while and listened, but I didn't stay in my own silo. So I joined the program staff whenever I could. I helped out. I helped the administrative assistant take the donations of suits and bags and shoes for our career day. I sat in on every meeting I could. I went with the executive director to meetings. So eliminating silos, not sitting in your office and sending out emails and even calling people, it works, but meeting with people one-on-one and really understanding their objections, and trying to get allies, basically trying to build allies in the organization. Because if you're the development director, you're not on the front lines, you don't have access to the stories, and you need them. It just needs to happen. You don't have the access. Creating a social media committee. This is one of the best ways to ensure that there is a culture of storytelling that's embraced by everybody. So starting this committee, it can be people in the community, it can be clients, it can be former clients, it can be board members, staff members. It doesn't have to be people that are invested and technologically savvy and have 10,000 Twitter followers. It just needs to be people that are excited about the organization and that are committed to storytelling and sharing stories for the organization. When you hold this committee meeting, you want to listen first. So talk to everybody about your ideas and how you envision the committee and some of the reasons that you formed the committee. The why is always super important. And then the committee together can formulate goals and the action plan for getting the stories, sharing the stories, encouraging. Maybe you start a form, maybe you start something on your website. The actual details are up to your organization, but it's important that it's done by committee. So there are more people that are championing this cause than just you. This is where you're going to create your policies, and that's what's going to make your executive director feel really, really good. You're going to have an internal policy which states how you will be collecting and sharing the stories, and then you'll have an external policy that's forward-facing to the rest of the world. And I will go way more into that in another video because they're very specific, and I have some examples of social media policies that you can create. The key also is to empower people and not to punish people. Holding a meeting, brainstorming, no idea is too little, no idea is stupid. Do not ever make anybody feel like they can't be contributing or that they're too old and they don't know anything or that they're not on Snapchat so they're not cool or something like that. Make sure that it's your responsibility as the organizer and the champion of storytelling to encourage them to be themselves and to bring their ideas and their best stuff to the meetings. Provide as much training and resources as you can. I have 1 million resources for you. There's 1 million free resources on the web. There are toolkits, there are books, there are webinars, there are a lot of trainings that the committee can do together, homework assignments, worksheets, that kind of thing. The other thing that I like to do is I encourage you at the committee meetings to bring examples of stories that you've seen, either in the news or on social media, or maybe it's a direct mail appeal you received from another organization that you really liked. I encourage you to bring examples to the meeting, talk about what worked, what didn't work, and why you like this story, what was it about this story, and how can you emulate the stuff that you like in your organization. And then, above all, just make it fun. Make it fun to participate. Don't make it like, oh, this is one more thing we gotta do. It's one more thing on our plate. If people don't understand the purpose and the why, and they don't understand what's important about doing this work of collecting and sharing stories, they're not going to be invested in it. They've got their own job to do. They might think, wow, why don't you just go do your job and not talk to us? But if you explain to them the importance and you're authentic, but also if you just make these committee meetings fun, I think that will go a long way. So that's it for today. Those are my tips on creating a culture of storytelling at your organization. I'm sure you all have other tips, and I would love to hear them. So put them in the comments section, and I look forward to seeing you next Friday. All right, take care. Have a great weekend.